We're back with the OMC 350 for the Four Winds Vista 25. Okay, the last video you saw, I had the engine broken down up to the crank and went ahead and removed the crank. And it's a good thing that I did. All the bearings have spun on the crank, and subsequently this crank is absolutely garbage now. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that. So anyway, the engine is dismantled up to the crank. Everything is out, and you can see it spun the bearings, and here's an example of what's going on here. All the tabs are broken off the bearings. They spun around. The block is okay. Once we clean it up and install a brand new set of bearings and a crankshaft, and going to go ahead and change all the camshaft bearings and the actual camshaft itself. There's a lot of pitting on the journal to the crank of the cam, as you can see. I don't see the need of using this cam again. It's not in the best of shape. Go ahead and change the timing set to a double row rather than a single row, as you see there. And that's that. I mean, it's a clear indication that this engine was neglected as far as oil level. This thing was run with almost no oil in it, and that's why it does this. There's no other explanation. I mean, there's no reason why this thing should have gotten to this point, but nevertheless, it is. And you know, I mean, if you watch every other video on YouTube on engine building, it's got a similar scenario. And what you won't see in my videos is all this repetitive talk about, you know, don't touch the bearings, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, you know, just listen, guys, common sense. You don't want to build an engine with dirty hands and dirty oil and grease. Everything has to be clean. Everything has to be checked, you know, for the right size, and everything's got to be double checked and, you know, gauged and so forth and so on. Use common sense. Obviously, if you're looking at videos like this, we all share the same interest in getting it done right. And I like all these people that go on there and they're like, don't touch the bearing with your hands, there's oils on your fingers. And yeah, you know, that's true, but I mean, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? I mean, it's not, you wipe it off if you get fingerprints on the bearing. It's not the end of the world. You know, I mean, a lot of times, hey, how about this? You're putting oil in your engine with a can and a little piece of dirt falls into your engine. What are you going to do? Throw the engine away? You know, shit happens. Don't go crazy. Don't be too anal, but be anal enough that you don't have to do the job twice. That's the main thing. Like, look at this engine. This engine's got no more than 200 hours on it. This is obviously was done. It was done right. It was not maintained correctly. That's the main thing. All right. So on the pistons, I'm going to go ahead and replace all the bearings and all the rings. The pistons themselves are absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with them. In fact, there's not even a mark on them. They're really nice. Not even on the skirts. You pick up a skirt, here, I'll show you what I mean. The skirts on these pistons are just super clean. I mean, you know, that's just the mark that you see there from just laying it on the ground. But there's no scuffing. There's nothing like that at all. I mean, you know, they're really clean. I mean, like really clean. You know, so I just don't see a point of spending additional monies on a non-wear item. And that's what I consider a piston to be. The wear item is the rings and the wrist. Well, actually, the wrist pin and stuff, that actually does rotate, but I mean, there's no need for that. Once this block is cleaned up, we'll decide on a nice color to paint it. And I know all you GM people will say orange, but I'm going to do something a little different on this engine, so we'll see what happens. Okay. Stay tuned for the next series of videos on cleaning and reassembly. I try to give just guidance to people that have never done this before. I mean, you know, I've done very limited amount of Chevy V8s, but I mean, they're very easy to do if you just follow the rules. And, you know, you can see this crank here is just a disaster. Look at this. Look at these bearings. You can even hear it. It's like playing a guitar. So anyway, and this engine, believe it or not, this engine ran quietly. It just got, I mean, you know, if you got on it, when I say this, you know, trying to get up on plane on the boat, going up to about 3,500 RPM, it started to make a slight rod knock. I mean, very slight. You could barely hear it, but I knew it was there. And now I take it apart. I'm surprised that it's even. But what was going on? For those of you that have been thinking, you see those oil delivery holes there on the journals. Is that the right word? Journals? Yeah, on the bore, the head of the block. If this bearing spins, I mean, think about this for a second. Sorry, the phone, hitting the phone. See the hole there? That's supposed to line up. Let me give you a little audio, a little visual there. When you put this in there, those holes are supposed to line up, okay? If this bearing spins in here, guess what happens? The hole doesn't line up anymore, and guess what? You're not getting any more oil. I don't care how clean your oil is or how much that pump is putting out. And that's what was going on. I felt that this engine was getting, like, it was just rattling when I got up high, and it just wasn't getting any oil. So that's a great indication. So all this here, look at this, all this, and all that. You put it all together, and it just moves on its own. Isn't that something? Amazing. It's magic. All right. Good catching up, and we'll be talking again soon on what I did next. Goodbye for now.